News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moskow.
Karen, we begin with the latest from the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. President Trump is on his way to attend the annual gathering of global elites, and he's promising to talk about America's successes.
The country's never done better. We have $18 trillion plus coming in. We've never had anything like it, and no country has had anything like it.
The president spoke to reporters before boarding Air Force One, but the trip's already gotten off to a rough start. The plane had to return to Joint Base Andrews shortly after takeoff due to a mechanical issue. President Trump was eventually able to get on a replacement plane, but it delayed his departure by more than 2 hours. The president's speech is scheduled for 8:30 a.m. Wall Street time, but Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in Davos says he expects the president to be about 3 hours late. We will carry the president's remarks when they happen on Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Podcast channel on YouTube.
Nathan, when President Trump does arrive in Davos, he could find allies shaken by his stated desire to take control of Greenland. The president has announced 10% tariffs on goods from 8 European countries starting next month unless he has a deal to purchase Denmark's territory. Officials in Europe have started drafting plans to retaliate, but President Trump says he does not think they will.
I think that we will work something out where NATO is going to be very happy, and where we're going to be very happy.
President Trump spoke at a White House news conference heard live here on Bloomberg Radio, marking his first year back in office. Asked how far he'd go to acquire Greenland, the president responded, "You'll find out."
Well, Karen, France is requesting that NATO carry out a military exercise in Greenland in a bid to boost the region's security. That brought an angry response from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent this morning.
If this is what all President Macron has to do when the French budget is in shambles, I would suggest that he focuses on other things for the French people.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is questioning the message European allies are sending following Denmark's recent decision, as well as that of 7 other NATO nations, to deploy a handful of officers to Greenland.
Nathan, the Treasury Secretary is also pushing back after a Danish pension fund said it plans to sell its U.S. Treasury holdings by the end of the month. Academic Pensions cited U.S. fiscal policies and Trump's desire to own Greenland as reasons for the decision. Here's Bessent again this morning in Davos.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's comments follow a U.S. market rout yesterday that saw the S&P 500 log its worst day since October. And Bloomberg's John Tucker is here with the latest. John, good morning.
And good morning, Nathan. Yeah, the S&P 500 erased its 2026 gains. Bond prices and the dollar fell, all after President Trump threatened tariffs on multiple European countries who have opposed his pressure to take over Greenland. J.P. Morgan Asset Management's Bob Michaels sees it this way.
It seems crazy, except that things have a way of happening which people didn't think would happen. So you have to back away and de-risk a bit.
Well, Michael says the sell-off in markets is a message to President Trump's administration to take action to restore calm, as officials did after Liberation Day tariffs rattled investors last year. Well, this morning, risk assets may have found a floor. U.S. Treasury yields, they're backing down, and Japan's longer maturity bonds, they've rebounded after yields there hit a record high yesterday. Although Japan's rout was a separate issue, it was just one more thing to test investor patience. In New York, I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks, John. And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Karen Moskow.
I'm Nathan Hager, and this is Bloomberg.